Esports is a competition among professionals, the top players in their field. It's an actual fully paid job where the salary directly depends on gaming achievements and tournament wins. Professional players spend hours perfecting their skills, studying strategies, and analyzing their opponents' games. The gaming industry, including game developers, sponsors, and media companies, actively supports esports. Tournaments like those for CSGO attract millions of viewers worldwide and offer multi-million-dollar prize pools. Bookmakers also organize real money betting for each of these tournaments. Everyone expects esports to be a fair competition, but is it always so? Unfortunately, fairness in esports isn't always upheld. Just like in any other sport, there are issues with cheating by players and organizations. Consider the well-known case nearly a decade ago with the iBuyPower team, where players bet money on their opponents and deliberately lost the match. There have been dozens of such rigged matches, known for throwing, and it's anyone's guess how many remain hidden. Moreover, a specific aspect of this field is the possibility of using third-party software that provides an advantage in the game. Almost every CSGO player has heard about one of the most famous cheaters in the professional scene, such as Kelly. However, he's not the only player caught cheating. Other Tier 1 team members have also been caught using cheats. How many more such players go unnoticed is unknown, not to mention Tier 2 teams and below. So today we will talk about cheats in esports and the professional FACEIT League. We will explain what features cheats have, how they are implemented, and how they manage to bypass anti-cheat systems. Disclaimer: the Never Lose team condemns the use of cheats and any form of cheating in professional sports for fair players. We are merely publishing existing information about the current realities regarding the use of prohibited software in esports. We oppose such cheating, understanding the vital role esports plays in the lives of teams, players, and their fans. This video will provide general information about cheats for FACEIT with a slight technical bias. The reality is much more complex than one can imagine. Anti-cheat systems are designed to detect the use of third-party software through special methods and mechanisms, scanning memory for suspicious processes, monitoring network activity, behavioral analysis, and more. The best software to detect third-party programs is used in esports and professional leagues. But even so, they can be bypassed. Most cheaters in CS2 use internal cheats that inject directly into the game process and interact with its data from within. They are typically dynamic link libraries loaded into the game's memory. Once loaded, the cheat can intercept function calls, allowing changes to the game's behavior, adding new features or modifying existing ones. For example, an aimbot can intercept the aiming processing function and adjust the aim direction for automatic targeting of enemies. Besides this, CS2 also has external cheats that operate separately from the game process and interact with it using system functions. Unlike internal cheats, which inject directly into the game process and alter its data directly, external cheats interact with the game in a less overt way. For example, to display player information, such cheats often use overlays placed on the game window. These overlays can show additional information without directly interfering with the game's rendering process. For implementing aiming assistance, system functions to control the mouse might be used, avoiding direct interference with the game's mouse processing. Can cheats work this way on FACEIT? Highly unlikely. Let's consider one of the basic protection methods presented by anti-cheats like FACEIT. FACEIT uses an advanced anti-cheat system that includes drivers operating at the kernel level of the operating system. Additionally, the anti-cheat restricts any external interference with the game's memory, blocking the entire address space, thus preventing not only writing but also reading data. This protection is largely ensured by handle restriction. A handle is a unique identifier used by the operating system to manage resources like processes and files. When a program wants to access the memory of another process, it must first obtain a handle to that process with certain access rights. A program, for example a cheat, tries to get a handle to the game process using the openProcess function. This handle allows the program to interact with the game process, including reading and writing data to its memory. Meanwhile, the FACEIT anti-cheat intervenes in the handle obtaining process and modifies its access rights. This is done at the kernel level using a driver. When the anti-cheat system detects a handle request to the game process, it can alter the access rights, assigning minimal rights so as not to disrupt the operation of regular applications like the task manager. It can also assign zero rights or block handle issuance to suspicious processes altogether. For example, if a request for full access rights is sent, the anti-cheat system might change it to minimal access rights. As a result, the program gets a handle that either does not allow access to the game memory at all or allows access only to certain types of operations that do not include reading or writing memory. Handle restriction is an important protection method because many cheats rely on the ability to read and modify game process memory. By limiting access rights, the anti-cheat system makes it significantly more difficult or impossible to use such cheats. But does this mean that the FACEIT anti-cheat cannot be bypassed? Of course not. Currently, there are many ways to bypass anti-cheats, ranging from various programs to external physical devices. Broadly speaking, cheats are divided into three types: user mode cheats, kernel mode cheats, and cheats using external devices. Let's look at each of them. User mode cheat is a type of third-party software that operates at the user mode level of the operating system, not at the kernel level. This means such cheats work like regular user applications and have limited privileges compared to programs running in kernel mode. They run as regular applications and operate within the user's context. Essentially, this is a common cheat that can be downloaded and run as an executable file. Can you play with this on FACEIT? Yes and no. The thing is, this type of cheat cannot bypass the FACEIT anti-cheat in any way, but you can play on the FACEIT server with such a cheat if you're a beginner and the platform has not yet prompted you to install the anti-cheat. Once you get a warning to install the anti-cheat, you will no longer be able to play with the cheat, as user mode cheats cannot bypass the FACEIT anti-cheat. This is why there are many videos on the internet demonstrating cheats on FACEIT. These are almost always scammers. They showcase their programs claiming they can bypass the anti-cheat, even though it's not even installed. Here, macros should be separately mentioned, pre-programmed sequences of actions that can be performed by pressing one button or a combination of buttons on a mouse. It's easy to create a macro that presses the spacebar at 1 millisecond intervals, resulting in a sort of bunny hopping. Moreover, there are macros that control mouse movements to reduce weapon recoil during shooting. However, well-known software for bloody mice is prohibited, and using bloody software, the anti-cheat simply won't let you join the game server. Furthermore, the anti-cheat blocks third-party macro applications like AutoHotkey. The same applies to software from Logitech like G-Hub and similar programs. Therefore, you won't be able to play with macros if the anti-cheat is installed. Now let's talk about cheats that truly bypass the protection of platforms like FACEIT, which include their own driver that tries to hide itself. A driver is a program that operates at the kernel level of the operating system and provides low-level access to computer resources and functions, including memory, processes, and system calls. Drivers are usually used to control hardware devices, but in this case, they are used for cheating. The driver is loaded into the operating system, often using methods that allow it to hide its presence, such as using undocumented APIs or exploiting vulnerabilities. The driver can intercept functions used by the anti-cheat system to scan memory and return false data. Even on the FACEIT website, it is stated, the anti-cheat blocks certain drivers containing known security vulnerabilities. Some of them may be installed by hardware monitoring and management software. There have been cases where even updating a graphics card driver made it impossible to play on FACEIT due to the anti-cheat system blocking such a driver. We should also discuss hypervisors, a virtualization technology that allows creating and managing virtual machines on a single physical host. In this case, the system operates within a virtual machine. When virtualization is enabled, all commands issued by the operating system to the lower level, such as to the processor or memory, are controlled by the hypervisor. This means there is an opportunity to manage data at a level lower than the operating system itself. The hypervisor can intercept commands for reading or writing game data and modify them in real time. This allows altering game parameters without modifying the game process itself. Simply put, this is a driver with elevated privileges. All commands sent by the operating system to the hardware level pass through the hypervisor. This allows the hypervisor to intercept, modify, or block any commands and data transferred between the operating system and hardware. The hypervisor can isolate and hide data from the main operating system. For example, it can hide the memory used for cheats to function, making it invisible to anti-cheat systems. These cheats generally work as follows. The user downloads a standard executable exe file, which acts as the cheat loader. They can copy this file to an external USB drive and run it. After this, the computer restarts itself, and during Windows boot, a driver and hypervisor are loaded using a bootkit. The driver waits for the game to start, and once it does, the driver allocates memory for third-party software, writes and executes shellcode. Essentially, the driver runs the third-party software by allocating memory, and the hypervisor hides the cheat's allocated memory. When loading the driver into the system, the program that loads it must allocate memory for the driver itself. This can be done in two main ways: memory allocation through the pool or through MDL. Both methods have their own characteristics and can be detected by anti-cheat systems. Pool is a memory area allocated for storing driver data. It's a convenient way to manage memory, but can be detected due to the big pool tracker structure that contains information about all allocated pools. MDL, Memory Descriptor List, is a method of describing and managing memory pages that the driver uses. This method can also be detected by looking at page frame numbers, which point to all allocated memory pages. Therefore, even such sophisticated methods of bypassing anti-cheat can be detected. Moreover, programming a driver and hypervisor is a complex task. It requires extensive knowledge, including a deep understanding of C or C++ languages, operating system architecture, system calls and kernel functions, hardware interfaces, reading and writing to processor registers, working with interrupts and system calls, among many other skills such as injecting into dispatch tables. All of this makes the use of such cheats rare. The internet is full of scammers, and finding someone who can provide a working cheat of this type is very difficult and sometimes impossible. Simply looking up ByFaceit driver cheat will get you nowhere. These cheats are either custom-made or distributed among a very limited circle of people, mainly the coder's close acquaintances. If such a cheat were made available for several $100s, it would likely be quickly detected and you wouldn't be able to play with it for long. The exact price for such a cheat, which won't be quickly detected, is impossible to determine. You expect to pay several $1,000s. A more common anti-cheat bypass nowadays is using a DMA direct memory access card and its legitimate equivalents, such as network cards. DMA is a technology that allows peripheral devices like network cards, graphics cards, and specialized boards to exchange data directly with a computer's memory without involving the central processor. A DMA card can directly read and write data to the computer's RAM. It acts as a controller that bypasses standard operating system memory management methods. Faceit Anti-Cheat works at the operating system level and can control processes and memory interactions. However, since the DMA card interacts directly with the memory, it does not follow the same constraints and cannot always be easily detected. Since reading is done hardware-wise and directly through the PCIe bus, this action is not controlled by the operating system and generally cannot be detected by standard anti-cheat methods operating at user mode or even kernel level. This is achieved by installing PCI boards in the computer that execute read and write memory commands from another computer. This means that such a cheating method requires a second device. A laptop or mini computer will do. PCIe, Peripheral Component Interconnect Express, is a high-speed interface for connecting peripheral devices to the computer's motherboard. It is used to connect GPUs, network cards, audio interfaces, solid-state drives, and other devices. Essentially, it's a highly legitimate method of reading memory, as all reading and writing data is done hardware-wise without involving the CPU and operating system. This means that there are no additional programs on the main computer that anti-cheat systems could detect. It is worth noting that when using DMA cards, the anti-cheat cannot detect the external software itself. It can only detect the DMA device. Although using such devices is a complex and effective method for bypassing anti-cheat systems, Faceit Anti-Cheat has begun developing and implementing methods to detect such boards. Here's how it works. Anti-cheat system can analyze the firmware of devices installed in the system. Firmware is the software that controls the operation of hardware components, such as network cards or special DMA cards. Anti-cheat systems can check the integrity and version of the firmware by comparing it with known legitimate versions. If modified firmware or a version that doesn't match known ones is detected, it can indicate the use of a DMA card for cheating. Chips on DMA boards and network cards may have unique identifiers and signatures that can be read and analyzed. Anti-cheat can scan hardware components and read these identifiers, comparing them with a database of known devices. If chips with signatures that don't match known legitimate devices are detected, it may indicate the use of modified boards. Additionally, anti-cheat can analyze the behavior of devices in the system. If a device makes numerous memory read or write requests that are not typical for normal operation, it may be a sign of using a DMA card for cheating. If a device shows abnormal behavior, such as unusual memory or PCIe bus accesses, it can raise suspicions and lead to further analysis and possible banning. Faceit is a leading platform in detecting DMA cards. Currently, the platform has blocked all popular public DMA devices and their firmware. Additionally, the platform's administration manually reviews game recordings and blocks users who use external software. Fully featured cheats are already being created based on DMA cards. Since the entire program and its management are on the second computer, some users buy special boards that combine images from two different computers into one monitor. Using video output, the image from PC1 is transmitted to a special capture card installed on PC2. PC2 analyzes the data and overlays visual elements on the image from PC1. A display fuser combines the game image from PC1 with the visual elements from PC2. The combined image is displayed on a single monitor. As a result, the original game image from the main PC and the visual elements from the other are combined. There are also devices like KMB, Keyboard Mouse Box, for DMA cards. This is a separate device that emulates mouse and keyboard actions, changes the aim position, presses keys, and so on. However, in practice, its use often proves ineffective. Limited functionality, delays, accuracy issues, and setup complexity make KMB a less attractive solution. Using cheats based on DMA cards requires significant financial investment. We will provide you with an approximate cost of equipment and software based on our surveys. This data may not reflect reality and may be either too high or too low. The equipment, including the board and the display fuser, will cost about $600. Additionally, you need quality firmware with a market price starting from $1,000 to several $1,000s for the simplest option. There is always a high risk of being scammed. Firmware at a lower price is almost certainly detected quickly. Moreover, you need to purchase a second computer. Even a simple option for $200 will do. There are many pitfalls in this matter, such as the availability of a quality USB port on both computers, compatibility of the cable for stable data transfer with a DMA card, and more, not to mention the plethora of scammers. The external software for DMA cards is usually inexpensive, especially if bought from trusted sellers. The cost can range from $20 to $40. In the DMA cheat market, the distribution mechanism mainly targets a limited circle of users, only for those in the know, meaning people who already have the necessary equipment. This is to maintain confidentiality and prevent the spread of their software to a wide audience. To get access to external software, the user must pass a check for the presence of a DMA card. This may include providing photos or videos. Without a DMA card, users cannot even access the seller's assortment. Now let's talk about cheat features. DMA cheats are limited in functionality because the cheat operates on the second computer. Thus, features related to aiming can be made, but for displaying information, the previously mentioned video splitters are used, as visual functions are difficult to implement without them. At the same time, a non-DMA cheat can display information on the main computer without using a second computer. Most commonly used functions include aimbot, recoil control, trigger bot, radar hack, which can work together or separately. Visual features are often avoided. To reduce detection risk, many cheaters use less noticeable methods, such as changing the crosshair color when aiming at an enemy through a wall. For example, when the player aims at an enemy they can't even see, the crosshair color changes based on the settings, up to specific shades of a single color, which is practically unnoticeable from the outside. In this case, everything is limited only by the developer's imagination. Changing the game volume, pressing a specific key, like inspecting the weapon, all of this can be implemented. Moreover, it is extremely difficult to detect the use of third-party software even when observing the player's screen in real time. For example, there is a known function that changes net graph parameters when aiming at a player, which is very hard to detect. There was also a publicly available method of modifying game files that allowed removing certain textures, enabling players to see others through walls not displayed on their client. This method was fixed through a CRC check, verifying file hashes to determine if a file was tampered with. We emphasize that this video is for informational purposes only. Remember, the such market are filled with scammers. Offering to buy faceit cheats here and now is a scam. Using third-party software requires extensive study beyond this video, preparation, and financial investments in the thousands of dollars. Despite the sophisticated bypass methods, some small online tournaments may not even have anti-cheats. Regarding professionals, open qualifiers are always conducted with anti-cheat systems. But what about LAN tournaments? Using cheats at LAN tournaments is a challenging task. Major tournament organizers such as ESL employ their own anti-cheat systems. Using cheats based on DMA cards becomes impossible, as it would be quite amusing to watch a professional player plug a device into their computer before the match. Moreover, things can get even more complicated with a live play system, where multiple cameras record every move a player makes. Therefore, for LAN tournaments, Tier 1 to 2 level players use more sophisticated methods for cheating, such as exploiting vulnerabilities and features of the Steam platform. In the past, there have been confirmed exploits that allowed the execution of third-party software. Vulnerabilities in Steam Cloud allowed files to be uploaded and executed during the game configuration file loading process, which could include launching cheats. Vulnerabilities in community maps and previews allowed cheats to be embedded within the maps. A player would download a community map with specific embedded code. When the map loaded, the script would automatically execute and activate cheats. There are also known older methods of remote code execution, where joining a server would automatically run code that downloaded and injected third-party software into the game process. In other words, it was enough to simply join a specific server, and third-party software would already be running in the game. For a while, LAN tournaments disabled internet access to prevent this, but they stopped doing so because players lost access to their skins and other customizations they were accustomed to. The vulnerabilities mentioned are known for sure, but how many more such cheating methods exist is anyone's guess. These methods of cheating are very expensive. Usually, Tier 1 to 2 level players pay a percentage of their winnings for using these methods. Despite developers' efforts to improve security, there are many methods to load and execute third-party software. These methods can range from exploiting software vulnerabilities to more sophisticated techniques like using hardware. Additionally, smaller LAN tournaments do not always employ third-party anti-cheats, relying on the honesty of players and the fact that it would be easy to detect the use of third-party software due to the physical proximity of the player. However, this is not always the case. Stories about embedding cheats into keyboards, mice, or headphones are actually myths. A USB port has limited capabilities, and without an additional driver on the PC, it cannot access memory or affect the game in any way. USB devices can only perform actions possible through keyboard and mouse input, power the device, transmit sound, and so on. Essentially, the myth of the cheat in the mouse is just that, a myth. Such manipulations require specialized hardware and software installed directly on the computer, making the stories more folklore than reality. However, there is something known as bad USB, a type of attack where a USB device, usually a USB flash drive, is reprogrammed to perform malicious actions when connected to a computer. Bad USB can input commands into the command line or PowerShell to download and execute malicious software. However, using even this method at a LAN tournament is quite complicated. Using a cheat on the professional CS scene puts a player in a position where their career depends on the creator of the third-party software. Once they reach success, chances are the cheater won't stop using cheats. Their salary increases, they become more demanded, and stopping the use of the cheat could lead to the cheat creator exposing their cheating. Thus, in the modern gaming world, there are many different methods and approaches for creating and using cheats. Game developers and anti-cheat systems are constantly improving to protect players and ensure fair play. Despite this, cheaters continue to find and discover new ways to bypass anti-cheat measures. It is important for players to be aware of the risks and consequences of using cheats, and for developers to continue working on improving the security of their products. Once again, the Never Lose team strongly condemns the use of third-party software in professional sports for fair players. We warn you that there are many scammers in this field, and this video is purely for informational purposes. We do not encourage any actions. For playing with third-party software, there is the HVH mode, where cheaters play against cheaters, not affecting fair players who do not use third-party software. For playing on HVH servers, we recommend our game servers at sid.dog. We'll be waiting for your comments below this video. You might point out some important points we missed. Feel free to also share topics you'd like to learn about in future videos. Throughout this video, we've hidden several Easter eggs containing subscription activation codes, and we're starting a giveaway for all commenters. The rules are simple: like the video, subscribe to our channel, and leave a meaningful comment with your Neverlose username at the end of it. We have also launched a media content contest, with all additional information available via the link in the description or the QR code on the screen. Thank you for watching. This has been the Neverlose team. Stay tuned for more insights in our upcoming videos.